What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Tracey, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. Let's go. It's another Monday. It's time to get up, get the grind going, pour the coffee. You got the grit? You got the grit? We got it. We got the grit inside the studio here. So, sit back and listen to this episode. So we were just talking, and, when I started this podcast, over 4 years ago, 180 some odd episodes ago, there were several reasons, but one of the things is that I've over time, especially really been able to develop is that thing that allows me a platform to be able to build deeper relationships with people that I think that are just kick-ass humans. And so, when I was out there and I was building these relationships, meeting people, it was like, there's got to be a next step, other than do we do business together or, just going and meeting for coffee. There's got to be something else that we can do together. And as I, watching the content and creating content for myself, it was like, oh my God, let's create some content together, because it is a way to, again, take that awesome person that I just met, this incredible story that I just heard, and say, let's go create that and tell the world about it. And then it's just another element of that relationship. So, getting to know people even deeper, but then the podcast comes out and it's like a whole week of I talk about, it's kind of like, we're dating in the sense of here's the clips and we're so excited. And it's like this conversation. And I look at it kind of like, I went on a cruise a couple of years ago, and if you've ever been on a cruise, it's like they dedicate that whole week to you, in the sense of you're made to feel so special, like you're the only one that's ever been on this cruise before. But then the reality is wonce you get off that boat, a whole new crew of people is on the next week. And where I guess I'm different from this is because it's like a new adventure every single week that I get to share, in a new relationship that I get to dive in deep and communicate back and forth with people. It's constant because I get to continue those relationships, continue those experiences. I've had people on this podcast multiple times and being able to see their growth. We just had the Man Wheelers on a few weeks ago that, we're diving in, and from John, being this single young man that's just out there grinding to growing a family. We're going to have Bastianelli, owner of Fortis Group, on. Again, he was on last October. And since the last time he was on this episode, he's added 80 employees to his company. The last time I saw him, he was like, it's literally the craziest thing in the world. He was like, I'm writing payroll checks that are 20 times my house payment, and what that looks like from growing a solopreneur small business to all of a sudden having 80, 90, 100 employees is pretty crazy. And then really cool, this is just sidebar and how relationships happen, right? And this is what I love about relationships, is because Brian Bastianelli coached my son in football. And I'm going to bring Mary in. I'm going to stop talking to the camera. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Mary Neumann, owner of Renovation Sells out of Clarkston.
That's right.
We'll get into the conversation. Listen to the story. This is so crazy. So Brian coached my son in football in middle school, all from elementary school all the way through middle school. Super awesome guy. Started this company, really incredible purpose. He's repurposed retired military, retired police officers, and created this security company where they work with Oxford schools. They work with Brighton schools here locally. So different school systems will employ them to come in and protect their schools. And then what's really crazy is spun out is now all these high-end people super rich people that want security detail are also bringing them in. Yes. And he's just had this crazy explosion in his business. And so my son has had this girlfriend for over a year, and, super awesome girl. But so they were going to go to the football game on Friday night here in Brighton. And so she was like, oh my God, my dad's going to be there. He's now working the security at the football games. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, did your dad work for Fortis Group? And she was like, oh, I don't know. He works for this company, and they're the best training, and all this stuff. And he's a retired cop, and she's got this best training and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah. Oh my God, he works for Fortis Group because they just got the Brighton contract, and it's so cool. So anyways, long story short of her dad went to high school with Brian and knew him, retired from the police, saw what he was doing, and ended up getting a job there. And so it's really cool how that comes back around and how relationships and people are connected.
Small world, right?
It's a small world.
Yes, we are. We are all interconnected. And I think where you and I really hit it off at Unplugged is that abundance mindset, right?
Yes.
And how things just, when you don't live from a place of scarcity, and you can just things just pile on. Like a rising tide raises all boats, right? And so when you can raise that tide and bring everybody up, why would you not?
Why
Like
would you
just,
not?
yes.
But going back to that, like rising tide, raises all ships. It's like even meeting you at the Entrepreneur Unplugged, and I feel like that was what even that event is meeting all kinds of new different people. And that entrepreneurship thing, I think, is what I was talking about. Is the best part for me of starting a business has been the relationships and the people, and kind of just going off on the rant that I started, but. Meeting you at Unplugged, it was like I remember sitting and eating lunch, and we just kind of caught like in conversation right away, and it was probably around that's what we're just talking about.
Yeah. I remember, yes, I went there by myself. Like I went to Unplugged by myself, and it was so amazing to just be outside with other like-minded individuals and to hear how business is changing and evolving with AI. And like you spoke on the social media aspect, because there is so much to social media and what you put on which platform and how you come across. I'm definitely going next year, but meeting everybody was huge. I mean, networking it just has such a big impact when you're starting a business and when you're laying the foundation.
How did you find the Unplugged?
Through the Clarkston Chamber of Commerce. So Brandon Still partnered with the chamber. And then I knew other people that were going from the Chamber of Commerce from Clarkston. And so I wanted to go and check it out and see what it was about. A day to like just focus on a Saturday dedicated to my business is like what I love. Like I could not do it. It sounded like a great opportunity. And I have 2 kids. My parents could watch my kiddos while I went. And my husband does jujitsu. So Saturdays is his day where he does the mornings is dedicated to his classes.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I can make it work and I can get to where I need to be, I'm there.
It's so killer. And that is like, I've been there for 2 years in a row. For avid listeners, they know they've heard me talking about this event quite a bit. The first year I was lit up. I had several people that I met there on the show, Dr. Rhonda, Brandon, Robert McElmurray, several people and the same thing, being able to meet so many awesome people. It's like, let's continue this relationship. Let's have you on. And by the way, you have an awesome story. And it was really cool. This event is having the story section, or the having everybody tell me their story and cutting the little clips. It was like being able to dive in.
Yes. I feel like I can always do that better, right? And I'm always figuring that out because it's always changing. And that's what I love about business and just at all aspects of my life. Like nothing is the same, right? Like you have to continually modify and make things better than they are today, because it can get better. Like there are always little things that can be done to improve.
Oh, that ties in perfectly for what you do, right?
Yes, with renovations. So I love improving what exists today. Like there's something to be said. There will always be new buildings going up, new homes going up, but improving on what currently exists and making it better is at the heart of what I do and why I do it. So we do quick cosmetic renovations. So looking at a space, so whether it's a kitchen or a bathroom, that's normally where we get the highest return on someone's investment. So if someone's going to put money into their house, we want to make sure whatever they're going to be renovating and changing, they're going to get that money out when they go to sell their home or property. So that's what we focus on. And it's making the whole space cohesive. So I mentioned kitchen and bathrooms, but really it's making it all blend together so it comes in a unified space and it appeals to a large audience. So typically someone's going to sell their home. Mm-hmm. There are buyers though too, right, who want to buy a home because they love the layout and location of the house. But maybe the kitchen hasn't been updated since 1996, right? So we can go in and make that a little specific to what that buyer is looking for. So when they move in, it's ready to go.
That's awesome. And so, what do you think the biggest challenge is for people that are thinking about selling?
Well, it was a seller's market, but I think we're switching into this time right now. It's interesting. And
because that's the way the cycle goes, right?
Yes, right.
It doesn't stay one way for a long time.
Yeah, right. It's dynamic. Everything's continually changing. And so it was a seller's market, and now we're getting into a buyer's market where homes are going to have to be unique to them. And ultimately, every home is unique in the sense that even if you take the same exact blueprints for one home and put it on a different piece of land, that land is not an exact replica, right, of where that property is. And so I just love that every property is unique, like every person. And we're improving upon the current status, the current state of it, and making it better.
We've talked a lot about that small business and building the community and everything.
Yes.
How long have you been doing this?
So I've been doing it for a few years. I had to go and get my general contracting license.
Yeah.
And so that took a little bit more time than what I thought it would. I underestimated the whole process. It was like, 60 hours. You have to do 60 hours of training and then go take a test. And I was like, 60 hours. It's like a week and a half, right? Like, no big deal. No, but like dedicated time, like on a computer, like it was more intense. And then you have to prove that you did the training so you can actually apply to take the test. And so it's a good, I did mine in 4 months, but after I did it all, I heard from someone else that it really takes 6 months is a good amount of time. Had I known that then, I mean, I'm glad I did know it.
Yeah.
Because I just kind of put my head down and like got through it, right? There are just moments in time where you just power through it in that moment. And that's what I did. And it was so worth it because I love adding value to our community, right? And when we improve upon a home, whether it's a dilapidated home or it's just a home that was built in the early 90s and it needs some simple updates, it's adding value to the community itself if we can improve those properties.
You don't really think about that as like a homeowner, but when you improve your home, what does that do to the community?
Well, and that's it too, because you look at comparables, right? And sometimes I meet with homeowners and it's like, if you don't do the improvements and sell your home for less than what someone else could sell it for, the comparables will pull the home prices down. And so when a home sells for higher, then it kind of raises the tide, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the goal. And I also have a passion for just starter homes, right? So I think that it's a balance like anything else. We need to improve upon large homes and small homes the same amount and continue to build new homes. So it's a constant cycle of doing all of it.
I know we talked about this a little bit in our conversations, and it's something you don't really think about until you're there. But when you're thinking about selling, what do you improve?
Yeah, so every home is different and unique. So kitchens and baths are where we get the greatest return on someone's investment. So that's where we start. But if the kitchen looks great, a primary bathroom is also really important, right? Paint, just painting and creating a blank canvas for someone to give them the idea of what it would be like for them to live there. That's really when you're going to sell a property. You want to make that property appeal to a large group. And then once you move in, you can get more taste specific and whatever that is, right? So in trying to appeal to a large audience, when we go in and design, we choose everything from the materials to the placement of things. And there's just best practices out there, right? There's standards on how the backsplash should be laid or flooring. And contractors aren't always aware of those things, right? Like they just want to put in the floor, but not necessarily taking into account how laying it in a certain way will show up for the rest of the property, right? So we take all of that into account. And so not only do we choose the materials, do the design board, but we also install everything and we have financing available. So for that homeowner who doesn't have the money readily available, but they know there's equity in their home and they just need to update it to sell it so they can move on to the next stage of their life.
Oh, yeah.
They can finance it to get over that hump.
That's really cool because, again, they're selling, but do they have that money in order to get to that space?
Right. They know that like their home where they bought it 20 years ago, the location is great and the layout is phenomenal and they've kept the bones of the house up, right? But they haven't really cared about the pink toilet or whatever. I don't know, like whatever the taste specific thing is.
Yeah.
And so we can go in and just make those slight adjustments so they can maximize the equity in their home. Because a lot of people who sell their home, maybe like a home that they raise their children in, they're looking at going into like a retirement community or something different, and they need to maximize the selling price of their home.
What's the story of one of your favorite clients?
So, I have so many.
I know that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's that person who's needing to move to the next state into the retirement community,
Yeah,
and they have to maximize the selling their home value so that they can move on, right? Like so they can. That's really our biggest investment. Typically,
yeah,
your biggest investment is your home.
and that's really
so,
setting up what does the rest of their life look like.
right, their livelihood, right? And yeah, to make sure that they're secure. Because I mean, that's all changed, right? Like how with Medicare and Medicaid, and I haven't kept up with all of that, but I know medical costs are significantly more than they used to be, and people are living longer.
Oh yeah, way longer. Yeah.
So yeah.
So how did you start this?
So with renovations, actually, I started in automotive, working for a car manufacturer, and I loved it. But I knew if I ever wanted to earn what I was worth, I would have to start my own business. So one of my close friends and I started a business together where we renovated used car dealerships across the nation, and we did a handful of them. But then I started a family, so we had to sunset that. And then when I decided to leave corporate America, after 15 years, I kind of came back into it from a residential standpoint, and it just felt right. Like that's what I needed to do. I always wanted to start. I always had a heart of an entrepreneur, but my dad, he was in corporate America. It worked for him. I think there's a place for corporate America, but I just wanted something different. I always thought that starting a business would be risky, and it is. There is risk involved, right? But it's weighing that risk. And I wanted to be there for my family. I wanted to have more of an impact in my community. And I just wasn't getting that in my corporate life. And also my husband started to get more into his corporate role, and having two partners in corporate America. It just got to be a lot because I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son, and I wanted to be able to be there for their activities and with them. And I wanted them to see me growing something, right? I do believe like a business is like a baby. Like it needs a lot of attention, care, and feeding. And so, yes.
And the other really cool thing is this is like, I don't know if you've thought about this at all, but it's like setting that example for the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
So many guests that I've had on have shared their stories about how they had a parent that was entrepreneurial, and whether they had success or not in the business doesn't really seem to matter in the outcome. It seems like every person has learned something, whether their parent was successful at it or failed at it, and they took something out of it. But it was the ultimate message that you can go out and you can live the life that you want. You can go create something that you want. And it's really cool how that happens, kind of like just watching your parent do that.
Yeah, I like that. Right. And creating something for yourself, right? And not having to live by a different set of rules and standards, but knowing that you're setting the standard at the stage of what you expect. Because how we do things is just so different in renovations, and that our standards we hold ourselves to higher standards in the sense that the materials we use, and we take virtual scans of a place. So I go back and look at the square footage over and over again. So when we do provide a proposal, it is what it is. Like we don't go back through and revise unless materials change or we decide we want to change the scope of what we're doing. That happens from time to time. But overall, what we present and talk about, that's what we follow through on, and the timeliness and so forth. Because when you are getting your house ready to sell, you want it to be timely. You want it done in a few weeks. You just don't want it to take months on end and then wonder, like, are we going to get the materials or not? So when we go and create a design board, we make sure all the materials that we're looking at are readily available.
Oh, wow.
And we can get them in a timely manner. So we're not, waiting for a pendant light from China, or, what I've heard of stories before where, it just,
I've heard stuff. You're waiting for one thing to complete the whole job.
Yeah, to complete it. So yes.
That's so interesting. The things you don't really think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you want to like jump on in and get something started, but then it's like, where do you start, right? And I think renovations in themselves can kind of feel overwhelming at times. Like, when do I replace the floor compared to the faucet or the sink or the cabinets? And so that's where we alleviate that, and we take that all upon ourselves to organize it in a way that it's just done. And the homeowner, ideally, sometimes they go on vacations, which is really nice because I think renovations are tough. Like nobody necessarily wants to do a renovation, and no one necessarily wants to sell their home. It's like one of those things, like when we're in a state of comfortability, like moving and change is not comfortable. And so it's trying to get it as comfortable as it can be for whoever is experiencing that, right?
Because what they really want is the end game. They don't want it. Yeah.
That's it.
And
And I guess that's human nature though, right? Don't we all just want to jump to the end? Like,
whether in your renovations or in your business, right?
Yes.
You don't want to have to go through the beginning and the struggle and the, all the stuff. You just want to be at a spot where you just clients are coming in.
yeah, just have it completed and have it done. But then who wouldn't say that the struggle and that process is so important, and it teaches you so much, and you get so much out of it by going through it.
If there wasn't struggle, then what does a win feel like? If there's no villains, then what is a hero? If there's no opposite of that, then there's no reason to be excited.
Yes. You almost have to go to those extremes to find the middle, right?
Yeah.
To find that center ground.
In going and actually doing the things and getting the experiences, it's just the true lessons. Like that loss is a bigger lesson than the win a lot of times.
Yes. And yes, figuring it out and like learning and adapting and changing. I think if anything, that's what I've always like come back to, is just that like I'm continually changing and evolving as a person. Yes. And I think being a parent has led me to accept that more of myself, right? And seeing that in my kids and like, oh, like I love and accept them for everything they are. And then reflecting that on myself so I can give that back to humanity.
Yes.
Because when you're more forgiving of yourself, you're more forgiving of others as well.
Well, and it's so hard because we do, like, I think we try to give to other people, especially as parents. We're trying to give to our kids, especially the thing that we lacked. But if we don't fix that thing or model that thing, if we're not eating our own pudding, for they're seeing, like watching the entrepreneurship. Like you can tell your kids until you're blue in the face not to do this thing, but if they see you do it all the time, it's just a second nature.
Of course. That's what they know and what they see. And that's also, I think, the worst part of parenting is seeing like those qualities come out and you're like, I know they got it from me, but don't do it.
Earlier we were talking about my 16-year-old, and like, that growing up process. And it was one of those things, like forever, he was like, yuck, girls, I don't want any kind of really, and we're, it got to be 13, 14. He's still like, I could really care less, like just let me play my sports and do those things. And then when he got into a relationship, it was like, again, it was like wasn't really caring towards girls or like, and then when he got into a relationship, it was like watching how he treated and like opening doors and like just the way like he dialogues. And I remember this was like his first relationship his freshman year, and we took him and his then girlfriend up north, and we did like the color tour and stuff like that. And like just kind of observing him throughout the day and the way he was treating her, it was like, emotions like, oh my God, he's been watching. Like in the sense of like, this is how I interact with Gracie. And he's mirroring that in a way. No, he doesn't even know it.
Right. And you must have been like so proud in that moment when you do see that, right? Reflected.
Oh, so proud.
You're like, wow.
That's what it's the cool moment. It's like, it's bittersweet. I loved 5. I loved 9. Like I would give anything to slow this process down, because he's at this independent stage where you talked about, where he's driving and he's working and he's creating his own things, which is so cool as a parent, because you're like, okay, he's going to be good. Like he's, I don't have to worry about whether he's going to make it in the world, that kind of thing. Like but God, you still want him to really need you.
Yes, of course.
Like you want it to be 9 again,
Yeah, you want that dependence. And it's so funny because they do have that dependence on you, right? Even though you don't see it, because I feel like, oh geez, like I still want my mom sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm very fortunate. I have both of my parents, and I just feel so lucky because I have a lot of friends, close friends that like they don't have their parents anymore. And I think that's hard because I don't know if you ever get over not needing your parents to some degree.
Yeah. If you have good ones, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. Even if you don't, you're there
Yeah.
trying to fill a void a lot of times,
That's
which is what you
it.
see happen in life.
Yeah, yeah. And that's interesting to me too. Like, because I feel like I think you always want that connection with your parent for whatever reason, like biologically, right? There's always that need to have a connection. Just interesting.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I don't know why we started talking
Yeah,
about that,
I don't
but it's one of those things.
I don't know.
Oh, we started talking about parenting because we were talking about growing a business and how that's a child. And then we started
Yes.
talking about the kids and business and the kids watching us grow a business.
That's it. And like my 9-year-old loves to read, but like he loves to read because he's seen me and my husband read, right? And I think that's just one of
Yes.
those things that like you don't know what you're showing them until you see it. Yeah. Oh, I was like, I need to think of a bad example because my 9-year-old told me I was being argumentative the other day. And I was like, oh, argumentative. You must have heard that from when me and my husband were talking or somewhere else, because that's not like a normal word, right? Like you just don't say like, oh, you're being argumentative.
You heard it
It's
from
like,
someone. Yeah.
Okay, probably. Yeah, it's probably my husband and I at some point in time. But so it's bittersweet.
It is. It is. It is. And that's what, so like, I always talk about like, I became a better salesperson when I became a leader, like a manager. When I got my first manager role, I got better at actually selling because I was modeling the right behavior. I didn't want my team to see me doing the wrong things.
Yes.
Especially when I was training someone new, I did all the right things. And then guess what? My results went up.
Well, yeah.
As a parent, if you look at it like that, like modeling the right things, your results go up.
Just being clear and transparent, right? And I think having a business has made me more like concise and like clear and like outlining the next step, what that next step looks like. Even right now, I need to put together like a calendar where we take down like Monday, because my daughter is still trying to figure out the school week, because with Labor Day, right? They started the day after Labor Day, which was a short week, and it's Monday. And she's like, wait, when's the weekend coming again? Like, we have 5 days. So I had to line up. So every day, like, we'll take a piece of paper off the wall or something to physically show her, how the week goes. But being clear and transparent and showing people exactly how things operate and how things need to be done, that's something that I had to develop as a business owner, to be clear and concise and exactly what needed to happen in what way. Like, how did the floor need to go down? And
Yeah. If you're not clear and concise, things go wrong, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And
especially probably in that detail.
Yes. Yeah. And like how it's supposed to be aligned and like underlayment and all of that. Because if you don't and you just assume they know it, it might need to be redone, right? And I think we've all had those experiences where it's like, it's not done right, and we got to do it again.
It's even worse sometimes if you're unclear, to go back and ask.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're afraid to ask, go back and ask a question, but that can save you so much time, energy, and embarrassment that you didn't get it done on time, or you didn't get it done right.
Or thought they knew, and it's like, or they should have known, right? And it's like, well, no, that it's no one else's responsibility but mine, and taking that ownership and that accountability and having and saying like, oh, I can't blame anybody but myself, right? And so how are we going to fix it?
I love this because it ties so into what you're doing. Because right, again, it's making the communication easy. It's making the renovation easy. And to do that, it's got to take a whole lot of communication, right?
Yes. It's this very complex thing. And so what I like is, and you hear this, like got it first when I was like working out, but what we do is simple. It's just not easy. So what we do is simple, right? Replacing floors and paint and cabinetry and countertops. That's simple, but it's not easy. It takes a lot that goes into it to make sure that you have everything available that you need when you need it. You have the right people doing the right jobs at the right time. So a lot of steps, right? To make it look seamless from the outside. And it's just like one whole cohesive unit. And we're working all towards doing this great thing of improving a space and putting the right people and materials in place to get there.
That's awesome. It's again, it's a lot of coordination.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. But I love, like I said, I love like how you like relationships with the podcast. I love the relationships I'm able to make with homeowners and with subcontractors and supporting their business. And it's win-win, right?
Yeah.
It's that abundant. It goes back to, we were talking about abundance, and it's that abundance mindset that everybody wins in this scenario.
You talked about like contractors and stuff. Was it when you started your business, was it imperative to go out and meet contractors, or how did that all work out?
Yeah. So I had relationships with subcontractors. Their work we had done on our house, right? And but then there are also subcontractors I reached out to, and so whether I'm like, let's go grab some lunch and like, let me see your work. Let's see if this would be a good fit for both of us. Because for me, whoever I work with, whether it's a homeowner or a subcontractor, there has to be value in the relationship, right? They have to value what I do. I have to value what they do. And then it just makes sense. But if someone doesn't value what you bring to the table, then for me, that's not a good fit. That's how I identify it.
How long does it take you to know that?
I would say within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I can kind of see, like, is this something that you're really going to appreciate? And like, this is a good relationship or not. And that's okay. Like if anything, I think in business, you get to a point where there's a comfortability with saying like, this isn't a good fit. And that, let's find a better fit for you. Or what would that look like?
What have you done that where you've helped somebody find somebody else?
Yes. Yeah. Like if we're just going to like simply paint, right?
Yeah.
Then work with a painter. Because what I offer is an all-inclusive approach, right? So we're just not doing one thing. We're just not doing like backsplash or cabinetry. So we're making a space become what someone envisions it to be or to appeal to a large audience. So it's not just painting a room. We do more than that.
That's such a great differentiator to know. And then when they're just looking for someone to paint.
Yeah. I have so many painters I would love to introduce them to, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, yes, talk to these guys because they do great work.
What typically happens when you do that?
Well, so I think both the homeowners and the painters appreciate it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just referrals. So I think referring people to each other. I mean, I want to say tightens. I don't know if that's the right word, but draws the community closer together.
Yeah.
And so it's just connecting people and being a connector.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the tightens probably is not that far off. There's maybe another word for it, but it strengthens.
Yeah.
Like when you may not have gotten that business, but when they think about what they got done, they're going to think about you because you made that connection in that relationship.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, and I'm sure you see it too all the time, right? With connecting people, because you have so many different people that you've worked with and you talk to when you can make that connection and introduce one person to another.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. I had one a few weeks ago where the guy reached out to me and was like, I'm looking for a business coach. And we got on the call and we were talking and I'm like, I don't see where this guy's a fit with me, but I have a friend, Kevin, who helps people from the beginning of their business really find the passion in their business. And I'm like, this guy's really missing the passion in his business. And he's telling me about his IT company and he says, get this IT company with his brother. And he's telling me about it. And it's just like, I didn't feel any energy or passion or like love about it. It was just like, we need to make money or we need to, whatever the objective was. And I'm like, I don't think you're my guy. I have a guy, Kevin, he's my friend. I work with him. I highly recommend him because I think you need to find some passion and drive to get you past the tough days. Cause if you don't love this, like,
why are you doing it? Yeah.
And so first he thanked me, but then he was like, there actually is this project that I'm really excited about. And he's like, my wife makes these candles. And so she makes these candles that look like a bowl of Fruit Loops, for example. It looks like a bowl
Oh,
of Fruit Loops and it smells like a bowl of Fruit Loops. And you don't have to even light the candle for like 8 months. It like, you can set it on a shelf and it'll smell like Fruit Loops in your living room.
oh, nice.
And then you can light it at some point or whatever. But so he's got these, like, he's telling me about this idea, but as he's telling me about it, his whole entire demeanor changed. I spent the time with this guy for a while talking about it. And just, I felt, ugh, I don't want to be like, no, like this isn't energetic, right? He all of a sudden had a different energy. I'm like, that's it. Like, that's
Yes.
like, run with that. And so he literally, like, so first off, he connected with my guy. They're working together now, which is so awesome, which is the whole point of the story. It feels so good that I was able to connect somebody to the right person and that they're working. And then from that result, he went out and he opened up a storefront and they are hitting all these festivals. And so I just saw him at the Brighton, the Smoke and Jazz and Blues Fest this week. He was down, he had a table set up down here and he had all these candles. And so I walked by him in the middle of the afternoon. He's like, I got all my stock built up. He's like, we're opening up a storefront. And so the main goal, his wife was at another festival in another town. And he's like, we're trying to sell all these candles in order to keep building our stock up. So we're just keeping reinvesting. And I'm like, awesome, man. How many can he's like, we have this many candles. He's like, as you can see, there's all these empty spots. And then me and Greasy walked by later Saturday afternoon and he only had like 5 candles left. And I'm like, that's awesome. This guy's like killing it, you know?
Yeah, and there's demand there, right? And people want that. That's amazing. Like
But it circles in. I was like, it's hard as a business owner because we're all in this for money, right? Like we need to make money to survive to a point. But at the same time, when you're doing the right things for people, when you're like, I'm not the person, I see here all you need is a paint job. I'm more of an intensive process. One, what's kind of cool about that is, yeah, they'll remember you and you connect them to the right person, but also you kind of reframe and make them understand what it is that you do.
yes.
So now that you've helped them, there's a high likelihood that later on down the road, as they meet somebody or they have a friend or a family member that says something that they're looking for, like, Mary,
Right.
you need to
Right.
connect with Mary. I'll connect you, you know.
Yes. Yes, that's it. And it's just a matter of people. It's a relationship business. I do firmly believe that business is all about relationships.
And it was, we forgot we didn't talk about this on camera, but this is one of the things that we were talking about at the beginning is like we were diving in and talking about kids and like our families and then you so masterfully led in and like it's so much like a business, like building a business, right? And it is because at the end of the day, whether we're parents, whether we're talking about our spouses or our other family members or our friends or our clients or people that we meet out in the community, it's all people and it's all relationships. And so people are all different, but at the same time, we all want similar things.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And for me, I feel like our external environment just reflects what's going on internally. And so there are just so many, improving your external space does help like this interior,
Ooh,
the internal part of your brain. And like, I just know that's true for myself. Like when I reduce the clutter and I have a clean space that functions and works for me, it's a world of difference, right? When it's updated and it's just like how I want it to be and how it's designed to be, there's something to be said for that. And I think like you were mentioning with candles and the entrepreneur, like when he finds what spoke to him and that functions, that works for him and who he is and how he's designed, it just plays through it just makes it easier, right? When we play to our strengths and we do what we're good at.
And so, I mean, how many people are doing the at-home project, and hating it? Because one, they don't know where to start. 2, they're spending a bunch of money going here and there, and then they got to spend their time doing it.
Well, that's it. And it's that wasted money, right? Or they're getting the tools that maybe they'll only use for that one project. Or they think they'll like this material with another one, like a backsplash with a countertop, but it doesn't look as good as they originally envisioned or thought it would. So I think there is something to be said for just doing it right the first time, getting it cohesive and having it be the way you want it to be, especially if you're going to make the investment anyways.
You mentioned how the space, how it has made a big deal in your life or a change in your life. What has that been like?
Yeah. So I was thinking back to this. So the space, my ideal space, growing up, well, I shouldn't even say growing up. So my freshman year at Michigan State, I had like a closet. I got a single room. I don't even know how this came to be, but I had a single room in Yakeley. It's right by Landon. So it's like it's the older part of Michigan State.
Yep.
And it was a closet with this beautiful like stained glass window, like arched stained glass window. But it was just so small. And that was the one time in my life that I had everything where I wanted it to be, right? Like my tape, my books, everything had a place. And it just felt so good. Granted, that was probably over 20 years ago. But I'm always trying to get back to that space, right? Like where I have room, like everything goes in one spot. And I have younger kids, so I feel like things are getting like taken out of rooms and misplaced all the time, and I'm putting them back. But so it's always, how do I make this space function better for us? And after 2020, we redid our living room, and it just functions so much better now. Like it's the one space in the house that I find like tranquility, because there's no clutter. It's just the way we want it to be. And it's so easy to put back together. There's something to be said for having a space that is designed and function. It functions the way you need it to.
What does it do for your energy?
Yeah, it elevates it, right? Because my energy is not taken up by trying to put everything else back together, right?
Yeah.
You can just enjoy and
You can
and
be
relax.
comfortable,
Yes.
relax still.
Yeah. Instead of thinking like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. But yeah, it puts all that aside and just allows you to just be and enjoy. That's why people go on vacation, right? And take those cruises.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about like
Cleaning up and
yes, everything. It's just like, enrolling kids and classes and, extracurricular activities. It's a never ending list.
Yeah. I loved how this what we're talking about right now, because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and it's something that, again, you don't really think about unless you're talking about it, but the way that a space can impact you as a person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm so interested. I need to do more. Like, I want to find more research on this, but I know. So like when they went to I want to say retirement communities, but nursing homes, and they actually changed the furniture in the nursing homes. It was actually cognitively better for those patients when furniture got moved around, even if it's the same furniture, right? That's good for our brain chemistry. It's good for our brains to see things laid out in different ways. And I just know there's like the way that our external space reflects what's going on inside of us is so important. And I don't think we give it the time and we don't give it the time and importance that we should.
Yeah. It's so funny because I said I don't think about it, but that's actually a lie. Because like I know how a room being moved around re-energizes me. I'm that kid, like ever since I was a kid, if my room got moved, like if we moved my bed into a different space and everything, I had so much more energy. I was so excited to come home and be in my room. Like I would close my door and watch TV and hang out in my room for hours because it was like it was just re-energizing.
Like a new room, like a new space.
And still to this day, I get that same kind of energy when we move a room, when we like clean up and do some things,
change
or like
it up.
paint, like whatever it is. It's like it's wow. I could spend hours here.
Yeah. You want to enjoy the space. I love that. I feel that same way. Like, so in that living room that we did, we just changed it. I think it was like it's September, last month.
I know, what day is this?
Where are we at anymore? But we moved, like we had this ottoman that we now put in the center of the room. And like that one change, like, it's nice. It just livens up the space. And now my daughter, like my 5-year-old, made it like her bed, right? Now she puts like a pillow behind the ottoman. So
that's awesome.
But it's different, right?
But she was drawn to it, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I think I need to look at more research and studies, because there's a part of me that's like, have you ever felt like inside you know it to be true? And so you just have to prove it. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if to find that information. Like, it has to be out there somewhere.
Well, and so, I mean, it's putting us at a disadvantage, like when we're sitting and we do have to apologize. Like if we're inviting somebody over, does that cause you stress? Do you have to run around and like make sure the house is cleaned up and like you're embarrassed about the way things look or whatever, like versus being able to be comfortable and being like excited
and
for people to come and see you. Proud.
Yes.
People to
Yeah.
Think
You
of
want
that
to show
energy
it off.
shift.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you want people to come into your space and you want to show them and you want them to feel welcome and invited and enjoy the space that they're in, right? That they can have like a coffee or a glass of wine or what have you, right?
Yeah.
And just be and yeah.
Wait, you even think about like selling a house. I don't know if this is like, but like it's got to be a stress to be like, oh my God, we're gonna have all these people in our house looking at our house, like
Oh
judging
yes.
us, and because like our biggest fear as humans is like
Yes.
to be rejected or to be embarrassed, to this, to not
Yes, I
to,
do.
you know what I mean?
No, I'm thinking right now, the polygamous right now, Cody, I don't know if you, did you, Cody Brown and they put their, okay, so it's like a polygamous family.
Yeah.
Anyways, they put their home on the market and I just feel really bad because it's getting criticized a lot. And that's not why I don't like the negativity surrounding anything. I'd like to look towards what's positive, but I get how it would be stressful and to keep your home ready to show all the time. There is a dollar amount associated with that. I mean, you could associate a dollar amount with it, right? It's peace of mind
Yeah.
and feeling comfortable enough to show your space. And then having it sell quickly because there is stress during that transition of like when and how and the timing of it all. So the faster it can sell, the better. And just a mortgage payment, right? If you need to get rid of a mortgage payment to move on and do the next thing in your life, the faster that process can move along, the better.
That's awesome. Just thinking again,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this is a little bit different story, but I think it's along that same thing. I had a sales guy several years ago, and he had all the talent in the world. Super good guy, but he'd always come in with like super wrinkly clothes. Like wouldn't comb his hair, like super wrinkly clothes, and you could see that same energy within him, right? Like he had that
Yeah.
sloppy, I didn't comb my hair
Take
energy.
care.
I didn't,
Yeah.
I like his wrinkly clothes were indicative of what was happening on the inside of him. That's how he saw himself, really.
Yeah.
And just working with this guy and having conversations and like helping him start to change who he was as a style and like even just like act as if I don't, like you may feel like crap inside. Go steam your clothes and come in looking nice because it helps you. And like over time, watching this guy as he changed his wardrobe, build his confidence up. It wasn't even just go buy new clothes. It was like steam your stuff, comb your hair, come looking nice. And it's like when you feel that, when you're like, all of a sudden your energy and your confidence changes.
Yes.
People see you differently.
Mm-hmm.
The way your house is like the way you're living there. That's your energy, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Right. And so, yes, when you can bring that out and show that you are something you are valuable, right? And you deserve this, right? You deserve to live the life that you wanted to and in a space that you're comfortable in and that works for you. That's huge.
So you're in corporate America
Yes.
and you're thinking about starting a business. How do you quit, start? What does that look like?
Yeah. It's scary, right? I think there was a lot of like conversations with my husband on how exactly we would get from point A to point B, but I can remember from in high school, maybe even middle school, like wanting to have my own business and meeting other business owners and being like, "You're living the dream," like,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Not really," but I'm like, "No, like you have your own business, you can do what you want," and
And they're like, not really.
yeah, not so much, but I just remember having that drive. So then, so in corporate America, so I moved around a lot when I was younger. And then when I was in corporate America, my husband and I ended up meeting in Chicago. We were both from Michigan. And when we started our family, we moved back to Michigan, both in corporate America. And it was time as things were changing. And like I said, my kids were getting older and I needed to be there. Like I couldn't do the travel like I used to. I enjoy travel. I love to travel and see different cultures and ways of doing things. But I wanted to be home too. And so that's kind of where it was like my husband started traveling more and more. And then it kind of got to be like, okay, well, I need to go back to where my passion is and what do I truly want to do. Because that corporate ladder, I wasn't moving up it. I kind of made a choice that I wasn't going to relocate because my parents live in Michigan. My husband, my mother-in-law, like his family's in Michigan. Our goal in Chicago was to get back to Michigan. So once we did that, we're like, do we really want to move out of Michigan? And we've thought about that for a few years, right? And it was kind of like, no, we're not going to. And then so it's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to move up that corporate ladder, what are the next steps? And that dopamine I used to get for like being, ranking high on different reports or whatever we were tracking that year for the month, it just didn't have the same lure. Like it didn't have the same impact. And even like money, yes, was livelihood, but it just kind of got numb, right? Like it wasn't about money. It was just, I need something more to my life. Like I want to be in my community. I want to do more with the kids' schools. Like I want to be connected. And not that I didn't feel connected in my corporate life, but it was a different type of connected, right? My dad also retired around that same time. And he spent over 30 years with the company he was with. And I kind of saw how his relationships, they just changed, right? When you are working in a formal setting and then you do something different, relationships change. And I'm like, I just want something different for my life. And that's why I started looking at different options. And this is Renovation Sells is a franchise. I liked that it had structure to it because since starting a business with my close friend way back when, before I had kids, I just thought it was really hard. It's hard to start a business. So I like that the franchise gave us a structure and support. And I think there's pros and cons to both pieces. But I'm really excited to be where I'm at today and meeting the people I do. And I really appreciate you inviting me onto this podcast and being able to share my story is phenomenal.
It's so cool because when you go out there and you start doing this thing, you get opportunities, right?
Yes.
And you never know where they're going to come. I couldn't imagine you went to the Unplugged thinking, I'm going to meet somebody and be on a podcast.
No,
right?
Never. I mean, I am so glad to be here. And like, I've listened to podcasts for so long. And I love hearing people's stories and where they came from and what they're doing. So being on the opposite side of that, it's a lot of fun.
Well, we talked at the beginning, as we were getting ready, we talked about so much, but it's all kind of recirculating in this conversation. And we were talking about how when we share our stories, like people resonate and get pulled in, right? We go out and we do our thing, but when we get this opportunity to share our stories, we get pulled in because people can resonate and they've lived similar experiences. And you're telling your story, it reminds we have a lot of similarities in that standpoint. I love how you described those things that used to have the dopamine release on, the things that used to get me super excited. I no longer got excited by. And for me, like, there's a struggle of like, what's wrong with me? Like why? And I would try and I'd shift and I'd try to change it.
Yeah.
I wasn't realizing what was going on. I fought the entrepreneur bug for a long time because there's a lot of scared, like, what am I, I'm making good money here. How am I going to do that? Like all the, all the things, all the self-doubt, all that kind of stuff that was going on. And so I went out and I convinced my boss to go out and like, cause I was like second in command in this company. It was a smaller business. Like it was a small business as opposed to actual corporate America. But we built this organization. And so I convinced her to go out and buy new locations because I was looking, it was like in a marriage a lot of times in like America, where like when marriages struggle, what do they often do?
Bring in a counselor?
Have kids.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Bring in a counselor and
too.
Have kids because the kids will fix it. We'll have a common bond. We'll
expand in some way, right?
Expand in some way. That's oftentimes the fix. And so that was I wasn't thinking about it. It was a subconscious thing, but it was like, I bet if we do this, because when I first started here, I had so much energy and excitement and it lasted for so long. I bet if we pull in a couple kids, if we add a couple new locations, I'll be fired up. And it worked for a couple of years. And then one day I woke up again and was like, I don't want to go to work.
Yeah.
What's taking this struggle? Like I'm struggling so hard. And it was that, and then I started to have the realization that you did this, like, there's more, right?
Yeah. There's so much more that you can be doing and creating. And the boundaries that we put on ourselves. And we don't even know they're boundaries, right? Until you get out of it.
Yes. Yeah. We have no idea. It's like the parachute, we're jumping out of the plane. The parachute opens.
Yeah. Right.
Isn't it kind of cool? Like the
Yes.
parachute opens.
Yeah.
The relationships you had in corporate America, how many of them do you still have?
A handful. Like I have 5. I would say that people I still keep in contact with, but yeah, not as many. It's just one of those things. Like everybody's in a different transition with their lives, right? And like so things continually change and evolve. But yeah.
Versus in the since starting your business, what are those relationships like?
There's so much more. I don't want to say intimate, but like or intense, but like I guess they're win-win situations, right? Like they're I don't want to say codependent either, but like it is like you depend on each other in a different way, right? Because their success is your success. It's more of a shared bond, and I want them to win just as much as I do, right? Like it's an equality. It's a healthier relationship, I think.
Yeah. Because that's interesting. Because that's an element I wasn't even thinking about until you just said that. Is like you have a kind of a competition in corporate.
Oh yeah.
Like it's a natural, seeding against each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And when you don't play into that, and I guess that's what I started to be like, well, no, I want to root for that person. Like I'm gonna like be their advocate. I don't want to say I don't want to look at what they're doing wrong. Let's focus on what they're doing right. You know what I mean? And like, how do we support and make that person go farther and do more? Anyway, so that is where I come from, right? I want to focus on all the good and all the growth, and
it's that abundance mindset that
that's it. Like
it's kind of the reoccurring theme of our conversation.
There's plenty for everybody. Like we all win.
We all win when we work together like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we can, like, if the majority of us saw the world that way, if the world would be an unbelievable place.
Yes, that's it. And I guess if anything, if I get into like that a depressive or like a low mindset, it's when that becomes more prevalent, right? And like how people are not cheering for other people, or like it's like I'm expecting the best out of you, and if you don't expect the best out of yourself, or you're showing me that I can't trust you, that's really frustrating for me, because I'm like my tendency is to trust and love and to like believe in the best, and like if I can't, oh, that's frustrating. Like it makes me really agitated and gets me into that space where I'm like, I can't be here very long. Like I got to find something else. I got to move and whatever. I don't know if I'm moving furniture or cleaning or like changing a space up, like ripping out walls, but we got to do something.
That's what, and if for people listening, like, should I quit my job and do the entrepreneurship thing? I don't know if it's for you, but if listen to the episodes and kind of listen to people's journeys, because I haven't had anybody on the show that's been like, man, I wish I would never have done it. I wish I would have stayed in corporate America. I wish I would have stayed with my job. Are there downfalls? Absolutely. Is there struggle? Is there hard work? Is there grit and all that stuff? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But man, if you don't like your scenery, you can change it.
Yes, right. You're in control, right? Yeah, you have the power to change where you're at, and whether it's just taking a run, right? I mean, there have been so many times where it's like, I just got to move my body. Like I have so much going on, like I just got to move myself.
Yeah.
However that looks, but yes, like we can all change our perspective if we want to.
Well, and we get to decide who we want to work with too.
Yeah.
And it's scary when you first start your business, especially you're like, I need to work with everybody. Mm. But then as you're doing that, and I wouldn't say to not do that unless you're very clear, specifically starting your business, like go out there and get an experience working with everybody and see what that looks like. Find out if you don't know what you like, find out what you like.
Right.
Find out what you don't like and make that list, right? Be very clear, because we can get seduced by the money, or seduced by we need to make this happen, or I need to land this deal and work with somebody that causes us so much more heartache and problems than what it's worth. And it just wasn't a good fit. And maybe somebody was a better fit for them.
100%. Right. Exactly. And one size doesn't fit all. And I have more of a less is more mindset, right? Like I think we don't need so many things we can't handle it. Like I'd rather just have a few quality things. Like I'd rather have quality over quantity. And maybe that's like a stage of life that evolves over time.
Yeah.
But yes, I value quality over quantity. And so anyways, that's for me, when I'm looking at who do I work well with, right? And it's more of the quality of the relationship, the quality of materials. Like that's what I'm driven towards, opposed to the quantity aspect. I'm not, yeah, like the whole cheap and like it just doesn't speak to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's nice when you know that because there's again a certain cutoff where we can be seduced to want to try to fit and work
Yeah.
on in somebody that has a budget and when that's not your person. And that's just going to frustrate
Yes.
you and pull your energy down. Talking about the energy.
Yeah, I figured that out. I was working with a couple, like a homeowner, to and and yeah, the budget just wasn't there, and it's like I can't give you what you want and have the quality that I expect from me and my team for the price you want it. And that's okay, right? It goes back to that's okay. And there are resources, and I can give you information on who you could use and how you could find that information and put it together. But like, I'm just not your person.
How'd that conversation go?
Um, Bittersweet. Like they understood,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like, okay, I wish you all the best. And like, if I can help you any further, please let me know. But it was, I think it went well.
Yeah. Because again, it's going back again. You're releasing them, blessing and releasing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's something better out there for them that could fit what they're looking for. Yeah.
Or there's not, and maybe they come back. Like that's the thing.
And it depends on it. Yeah, maybe they need to like define exactly what they want and what they're looking for as well. But I guess that happens sometimes with renovations in the sense that if someone hasn't done a renovation before or they don't know what to expect out of it, it's my job to outline that for them, right? So they see all those steps so we're clear and transparent and we know what to expect of one another. And I just think in relationships, it's just huge. I mean, it goes a long way. So whether it's a homeowner or subcontractor, to outline that and how I'm going to show up for them and how I need them to show up for me.
It's huge.
Yeah, but it's not easy.
It's I think anything worth having is not really, it's simple but not easy. I think
It's
is what
going back to that theme. Yes.
Yeah. You've had a few themes that I like. That's kind of popped up here.
You're right. Yeah.
How do you plug in? We've talked about a little bit about this, but how do you plug in work with like real estate agents or contractors?
Yes. Good question. So real estate agents, I have done presentations at brokerages and so like real estate brokerages to show them what we do and how we do it. But also, so I see myself as a huge resource for realtors if they have someone looking to sell their home or if they have a potential buyer for a home, right? And that buyer doesn't like the current state of the home, making it what that buyer envisions it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very versatile. And I think the more resources anyone has, the better off they are, right? And so I want to be available and I love meeting with realtors for coffee and talking to them about whatever properties they have or listings they have coming up and how we could improve upon them so the homes don't stay on the market for a long period of time. They sell quickly.
That's the important thing. Obviously, they want to turn them around as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the more properties they turn in, the faster, the better it is for everybody. But I go back to, because I did move around a lot when I was younger and even after, like when I was in corporate America. And it is stressful having a house sit on the market and not knowing who or when people are going to come through and look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That would be frustrating.
Well, and the mortgage payment too, right? And I think that's something I don't probably talk about enough, but just having that extra mortgage payment to get rid of if you want to sell your house, right? It's nice to be rid of it if you can be.
Yeah.
The sooner the better.
Well, and you talked about kind of being a seller's market right now where it's easier to sell, but we know that things are cyclical and they're headed towards different.
A buyer's market, yeah. And so there are going to be more buyers out there, which means that, in some developments, you have those like I'll say cookie cutter homes, but like they look very similar to one another in a neighborhood that's beautiful, right, with sidewalks. And those are the homes that I grew up with. So I love them, but they haven't been updated since the early 90s. And so the one on the block that is updated and looking the way that someone wants it to, right? Because the millennials don't necessarily want fixer-uppers. They want something that's ready to go. They don't necessarily have the time to do a renovation. They just want it completed already. So that's where we come into play to help a seller or buyer.
That's awesome. Again, it's those resources, and from a community and a collaboration, like how much value does a real estate agent add to their client if they just bought a house and don't love the way a certain room is?
Right. Yeah. And so it's right to
provide
offer
them
a
with a
solution.
solution?
Yeah. To say, hey, I have a solution for you. You might not like it the way it is right now, but what if, or you envision this, or think about how we could do this. And I think a lot of sellers do go to the real estate agents and say, like, what would we update, or what have you been seeing in the market? And I love working with realtors and talking to them about their neighborhood trends, their market trends that we see. And so if we can see that a house sold with a certain style or certain things done to it, let's emulate that, because clearly that's what there's demand for. So if we can create that, that's a win-win for everybody, right?
That's awesome. I thought of like doing webinars for real estate agents, like on how to, like how, or lunch and learns, like on
There
how
you
to
go.
improve their houses, and
Yes. Right. All of that.
just different education that you can get back to agents.
Yes, that's it. Right. And materials, right? And just having that information readily available.
Well,
Yes.
because as you provide them education, then you're top of mind, and they're going out again as they get asked recommendations, they refer you.
Yes, that's so true. And I think the fun thing too about like being a local business owner is like I've just come to realize like my capacity, right? You might see it too, like your capacity is limited.
Yeah.
So what's great about that place is knowing that, like, I guess it's that acceptance of like I work really well with the people that I work with, but I don't need to work with everybody because I don't have the capacity to work with everybody.
So true. Yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to. It's just like, how do you grow? But even like, if you get more people, they're going to click differently, right? It's just going to be, it's a different business.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really, how much can you do at one time?
Yeah. The growth.
And again, and like, this is different for entrepreneurs too, because, do you want employees? And I'm not asking like, rhetorical question, that kind of thing. And you can answer that if you want, but not everybody does.
It's true.
And that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do this solo thing, it's just understanding what your capacity is.
That's it. Yes, exactly. And how much control do you want over the business, and how much control do you want to allow other people to have on your business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a timing thing for me, at least. I think over time, it'll change and evolve. But right now, I'm really happy
Yeah.
with what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and who I work with. But I do think that it's not a forever thing. It'll continually
Evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, for me, for the longest time, I didn't really want employees. I didn't really know what I was doing. Coming this year, I've been doing a lot of just like rethinking about my business and like what I'm growing. And it's like, okay, now I can see clarity of where I'm growing. But for the longest time, I haven't really had that drive, desire, or vision. So
Yeah.
I've created what I've created.
That's it. Right. And accepting it and loving it for what it is, but then seeing like what else can it become?
Yeah.
And like, it's just fun, like zooming in, zooming out. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when I first started a business, like there were some days I felt like nauseous because I would zoom into the details, right? And get into the weeds. And then you zoom out and it's like, this is too much, too fast. Like, how do I don't know. Where's the...
You took the red pill, like the Matrix, like too much.
Yeah.
It's like
Too much exposure. Like how? So yeah, it's finding that sweet spot.
Yeah. But it's like I made the Matrix reference and like taking the red pill, because like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, could you imagine going back and working a corporate job?
I can't. I can't. Like I would, yeah. And now it's just so funny because like how I'm looking at things with Renovation Sells, but also beyond that, just with my own, knowledge, the questions I'm asking myself, how I'm looking at the world, and how I see how the world shows up to me and how I want to change and influence it is so much different. Like, I had the ideas before when I was in corporate America, but I couldn't imagine like the steps to get there, right?
Yep.
And so now that I've started my own business and I did this thing, right, that was really hard and scary and like, and it's like, oh yeah, I've done that. Like I've got that. Now what else can I do that's hard and scary?
Yes.
And it just looks differently. And like, what do I want to do before I die? And that list is like never ending. I have so many things I want to get done now.
Good.
And other businesses I want to start, right? And other things I want to try and experience. Yeah. And I hope all your listeners, I hope everyone has that inside them, right? Like of things they want to do and the lasting impressions they want to have on the world. Because the world, I don't know, needs the best of all of us.
We're out there making a difference.
Yeah.
Right. And when the communities combine, like we talk about, when there's the Brandon Stills that puts the events together, that pulls people from all sorts of different communities that are aligned in a lot of thoughts because Brandon brings about a certain culture.
Yeah. He's a connector. I don't
5,000%.
Yeah. Like he just connects people. And when you see those qualities in other people, you're like, wow, like that's really cool.
Well, and then like rising tides raise all boats, right? And when you surround yourself around the Brandons, he pulls in the Dr. Rhondas and the, people around him that you continue to grow from.
And that's how I wound up here.
And that's how you wound up here. Yeah. He pulled me in.
Yeah. I got here on a podcast. It's amazing.
That's exactly it.
Being great. Yes. I love it.
It's just how the relationships work. And I again, there's no matter what you want to see in the world, you can see it. And there are people out there that are very cynical and they think that they're in the scarcity mindset, that people are there to compete with them or steal from them or whatever the case it may be. And I'm not saying there aren't people out there like that, but you can go out and seek and find the relationships that you want. You can find the Brandons, you can find me, you can find you. You know what I mean? And that's even what this whole platform is about. There's 180 episodes. Go search through the Rolodex and reach out to people. Because that's exactly what this is. These are people that you can touch and reach and talk to, right? There are stories that you can hear in real life. Like that's how I did it. I went every single one of these people I've had one-on-one conversations with or that I've had on the podcast, right? And it's because when you meet these certain people, you realize that there are other people that want you to win.
Yes.
And they want to help you, whether it's just giving you advice or being on your podcast or whatever it is. And when you find those people, do what you can to build a community around them.
Yeah. And cheer for them, right? Yes. You cheer for each other. 100%. Yes.
And then the rising tide raises all boats. And then what does that impact on? And this is, again, when I go tie it back to the difference makers, when we're all continuing to grow and like meet and collaborate and grow and introduce you to more people in the network, we're having an impact on the greater community.
Right. Yes. Because what I love, so you and I, we met a few weeks ago and you mentioned that like just sharing your stories. And before this, we were just talking about sharing your stories and how everybody can relate to the stories and what they're going through. And if they're thinking about starting a business, what does that look like? How does that show up? Everybody's story is different, but yet it's very similar too, right?
Yeah. It follows the same kind of like a framework.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you look, you want to know what the framework is, watch any movie that we're drawn to.
Yes. Yes. It's the heroes. It's the villains. Yes. Right. It's the good and the bad. And then you have all that gray in the middle.
Yeah. And think about it. And like, let's put it into like the whole hero's journey story frame into what you do as a business, right? Like you're not the hero per se. You're the guide. You're Yoda.
Yes.
Right? Luke Skywalker's out there and he needs his house redone and he has no idea where to start. He needs to sell his house. He needs to rid himself of his extra mortgage payment or his mortgage payment, maybe move somewhere else, whatever the case may be. He's struggling and you have the answers.
Yeah, right. But then we could also make the realtor like the life state, right?
Ooh,
that's the thing, right?
yes.
Like it just depends on the situation and who's there. But yes, like let's make, I just feel like there's so many people out there doing good. And we have to work together to do it. Like no one can do it alone.
Yep. I love it. Mary. This has been so awesome. Thank you so much for coming down. I'm so glad that we were able to meet at the retreat, and
Yes.
I'm looking forward to continuing building our relationship.
100%.